If you have noticed cracking in your building, it might cause you some alarm, so if that is you, don't panic. The chance that your building is about to fall down is infinitesimally small, but there may be some things you need to fix in the coming months. There are numerous reasons that a building might crack, and it is unlikely that cracking needs to be dealt with immediately, as most houses are very robust. In our experience, cracking can be caused by a number of factors, including thermal movement, freeze-thaw action, impact damage, settlement, and subsidence. The Building Research Establishment categorises cracking into 6 different categories, ranging from hairline cracks of less than 0.1mm and large structural cracks of greater than 25mm. Typically, we would start to become concerned that cracking might need some remedial work if we identify a series of cracks in excess of 3mm wide, as this is normally where the real trouble starts. Thermal movement is by far the most common cause of cracking we see. This is particularly prevalent in new or refurbished buildings, especially those with a large quantity of timber components. These types of crack are usually hairline or very narrow in nature and are caused by the natural expansion and contraction of building elements. Often, but not always, this type of cracking is worse at upper floor levels, as buildings are normally less rigid and they have less weight holding them in place. It is therefore very common to see this type of crack appearing extensively in loft conversions, particularly as new building materials are acclimatizing to being in a heated environment. This type of cracking can also be exacerbated by high moisture levels, as this can affect the way finishes perform. Normally, we simply advise that these types of crack are filled prior to your next redecoration, and it is rare that structural work will be necessary. Freeze-thaw cracking tends to develop externally and is most common through mortar joints in brickwork. If the mortar pointing to your house is old and slightly degraded, it will take on more water than it should, which can freeze in the joints between bricks. Since this can dislodge mortar pointing, the cracking often looks much worse than it should, causing alarm. Sometimes the freeze-thaw effect can also serve to crack brickwork. Our first remedy for addressing this type of crack, unless we identify other contributing factors, is usually to repoint the affected area of brickwork in a suitable mortar and to replace any cracked bricks. Repointing can also address other issues such as damp and humid environments internally. Sometimes cracking is a result of impact damage. From a one-off inspection, impact damage can be hard to diagnose. Of course, if a property owner has driven their car through the porch, this might be obvious. On the other hand, we often see quite significant cracking which has been caused by vibration when installing windows and doors. Often, this cracking stays as it is for years without causing problems, but due to freeze-thaw action, can sometimes worsen, allowing water ingress or internal cracking to develop. Sometimes, when it is unclear if damage has been caused by impact, we recommend a period of monitoring to ensure that the problem is not caused by something more serious, such as movement to the foundations. We cannot always be absolutely sure without this monitoring of the cause of the movement, but use our experience to guide the client to the most likely cause, setting out the risks of other causes and what type of work might be required in the future. This type of cracking can be almost any size, and we will advise on remedial work accordingly. Settlement cracking is caused by sections of the building's foundations moving at a slightly different rate to the remainder before coming to a rest in a new position. We often see this where there have been historical drainage defects which have now been fixed, or after a new extension has bedded in. As with many cracks, we cannot confirm absolutely that a building has settled without a monitoring period. The key issue with settlement is that the cracking has stopped worsening. When we are sure that the building has stopped moving, we can address the knock-on effects, such as addressing cracking and adjusting windows and doors. Subsidence cracking is similar to settlement cracking, but with one key difference. The building is continuing to move. This is common if, for example, part of the building is slowly migrating down a slope, or if the causes of movement have yet to be addressed, such as leaking drainage or large tree roots causing changes in soil conditions. Often, this type of movement will create the largest cracks and can sometimes be responsible for cracks greater than 25mm wide, which is quite alarming. Remedies for subsidence can include underpinning to foundations, which is expensive work. You will definitely need a construction professional involved for this type of work. The most common cause of continuing movement we find, however, is damaged drains. While this is not necessarily cheap to address, this work can be quickly and easily completed, and often by itself is enough to stop the building from moving further. Another type of ongoing movement can be caused by roof spread, where weaknesses in the roof structure can cause outer walls to bulge. This is often driven by replacement of a lightweight slate roof with concrete tiles and will require roof strengthening works before cracking can be addressed. This can be expensive and difficult to fix, so again, it's one for the construction professionals. Sometimes, during a heat wave, we experience an increased level of inquiries relating to cracks in buildings, which appear to be driven by movement that is a kind of hybrid of settlement and subsidence. This seems to be driven by soil drying out and contracting, allowing foundations to move in unexpected ways. We even saw one building which had been underpinned following the 1976 heatwave crack in exactly the same areas as it did during the 76 heatwave, but 45 years later. We were able to compare the cracking with the engineer's report from the 1970s. If you think that your cracking might be connected to a change in the weather, you should first consider waiting a couple of months to see if your building returns to normal, which is sometimes the case. While you are likely to be left with some minor cracking, this is probably going to be cosmetic only. Of course, if you are alarmed, do speak to a surveyor. If, after watching this short video, you still have concerns about the cause of your cracking, our team of surveyors will be pleased to help you. All of our building surveyors are well versed in building pathology and will be able to assess the cause of your crack or direct any further investigation as necessary. Our team of crack experts can be reached on 02381 550051 and will be pleased to assist you further.